Welcome to All Angles, a college admissions podcast by Comet, the podcast that helps you crack the code to college admissions and make informed decisions about your future. With our unique approach of exploring all angles, we delve deep into the complex and multifaceted world of college. Our episodes feature expert advice, real world collegiate experiences, and valuable tips and strategies to help you not only get into college, but also succeed academically, socially, and professionally. From tips on writing an outstanding personal statement to what college students wish they knew before they applied, it's our mission to empower you with confidence, tools and resources, and the right perspectives to take it to the next level. On today's episode, we'll be discussing our first ever live college consultation, as well as sharing and answering some important admissions questions that first-gen students might have. So I'd like to welcome our guest, Melanie. Hi, Melanie. It's great to meet you. And I
Hi.
think you can share a little bit about yourself today.
Yeah, of course. So again, my name is Melanie. I'm a rising senior, specifically located in Houston, Texas. And yeah, right now I'm just going through the process of finalizing my college list, applying to scholarships, basically just trying to find out specifically what to do. And a little bit about myself is I'm first gen, I'm Hispanic, and I'm just curious to see what I can learn.
Awesome. It's great to meet you. We're excited to have you on our episode as our first guest for All Angles. And Elton, I would love if you can introduce a little bit about yourself as well.
Sure. My name is Elton Lin. I'm the CEO and founder of Illumin Education and also the CEO and founder of Comet. And have been doing college counseling advisory for the better part of 12 years. Have worked with thousands of students. Our students have been admitted to every top 50 university in the United States, including every Ivy League. And our advisory team is also filled with former admission reps and counselors and officers and all sorts of people, and have learned a lot about the college admissions process, and excited to talk to Melanie and dig in a little bit to see how we can help. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
So I think I'd love to start by asking you a couple, Elton, about a couple of common misconceptions that you think that people might have for first gen students. So something that maybe Melanie or in general for first gen, what are some challenges that people face or some confusions that they have about the application process?
Yeah. So I think with some of the students that we've worked with and some of the students who are first generation college students, meaning that their parents did not graduate from college, the common misconceptions we hear is that they're really concerned about testing. And I feel like that's probably going to be a conversation that's going to come up here, but that they feel apprehensive about their test scores. Perhaps they're hearing numbers from other people from around the United States, maybe in other high schools, and some of those SAT and ACT scores seem astronomical, and there's a certain sense of apprehension about the score that they're coming in with. There's also some fear about whether they can afford college and whether there's a place for them, whether maybe there is a school that they can afford, but it's not a school that they want to go to, right? So can they actually afford college? And that sometimes I hear too that some first gen students don't think that the first gen factor matters in the admissions process, and actually it's really quite the opposite. So I'm curious to hear what other perhaps maybe thoughts or maybe misconceptions might be hanging in Melanie's mental universe, but that's what we've been hearing from first gen students.
Yeah, so some misconceptions that I feel for sure that I have is so my older siblings, they went to community college, and considering the environment where I'm from, a lot of students are first gen as well. They typically immediately just go to the route straight after high school, community college. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that route, but I feel like these students just don't believe in themselves. They just think that's the only way for them, if that makes any sense.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that like it feels like they're settling for what everybody else is doing, And
Yeah.
then regardless of what their goals are, or perhaps where they see themselves, they're just going to do what everybody else is doing, which I
Yeah.
definitely have seen with other first gen students as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to the idea of this common misconception that higher education is more expensive, a lot of the students who I go to school with as well, they have that ideology since their freshman year that, oh, I can't afford to go to college, I can't afford to go to university, so why even try at all? So I guess it's a problem since the beginning, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this is where there are ways, and there are ways to be able to make sure that you can afford college. But I think it's this aspect of where first gen, and really this understanding of students who may not have had the legacy from their parents and previous generations of higher education. The reality is that colleges are looking for you, and they will oftentimes put scholarship money behind that intent to have you to come. And so not to say that like first gen kind of solves everything, right? So I mean, you need to still do well in school. You need to have, you know, a strong profile if you can. But certainly you are first gen students are students that colleges are looking for without question.
I think that's really interesting to hear, Melanie, especially about some of the misconceptions you've had. And I do hope, I think that Elton's explanation kind of about some of those potential challenges was, it definitely provided some insight for me. And I think I would love to kind of understand a little bit about your profile now as a student, and including some of the academics you've done and, you know, other extracurricular activities. Obviously, when we're applying to college, that plays a really big role in the application, right? I remember like when I was applying, like double checking each grade for like the different transcripts I had, like, okay, this is an A minus, like a B, like everything, you have to keep track of that and make sure you are, you know, kind of pushing yourself in a sense for classes. So I'd love to ask you a little bit about some of the AP classes that you've either taken or plan to take. Doesn't have to be all of them, but just a couple that you would like to share about.
Yeah, of course. And is it okay if I like add my personal experience, like share my personal experience with this?
Yeah.
Okay, just double checking. So I've had a really strange relationship with advanced courses, specifically stemming from my freshman year. The transition from middle school to freshman year was really strange, considering it was the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. My freshman year, I took online school the entire year. I was at my house logged in every single day. And I really wish I had some more guidance on specifically how to plan out my 4 years of high school, what courses to take, what courses are beneficial for any major or career interest that I have, which is business. And I honestly wasn't aware of the amount of AP classes available to me, or even, I'm not sure if you guys are aware with this term, pre-AP or CAP classes. There are these courses offered in my school, in my district, that prepare students for AP classes, but they're at a higher GPA. I believe it's out of 4.5 GPA scale, I believe. And you could take all your classes, for example, algebra, English, biology, any science pre-AP or CAP, and it would have helped my GPA a lot more, but I just wasn't aware of it. So my freshman year, I started off my AP journey with, what was it? AP Human Geography. Just because a friend recommended it to me, I was like, okay, I have no idea what it is, but we'll just try it out, YOLO. And I started off with it online, and I just honestly loved the class. It was nothing like I was used to before, especially in middle school. It was obviously a lot more work, a lot of more comprehension, understanding, but that's what I liked. I liked learning more different aspects other than just the bare minimum. And because of that, I pursued to take AP World History, AP US History. I love the advanced history classes, so those are for sure notable ones. So far, I believe I've taken about 6 AP classes. I think by the time that I graduated, I have completed 11 AP courses, I believe. But yeah, that's just a little bit about my experience with advanced courses. And I took dual credit algebra. I'm not sure if you guys have that available in your states, but in Texas, dual credit is really motivated here. And I just took it to see how similar or different it would be to AP classes. It for sure wasn't a lot of differences. It was very similar, the same track, the same amount of coursework. So another notable course would be dual credit English, which I plan on taking next year, just because the fact that I get to communicate more with college professors. And my campus specifically, we get to work more with college professors or teachers who have been officially licensed from a community college.
Awesome. So I would say if I were to give a quick assessment, I think it seems like you've taken quite a few APs. When given the opportunity, you've taken the most difficult
Yeah.
course lane, and you've perhaps relied heavily on like the social sciences, so like AP US History, AP World History, AP Human Geo. And you did send me your transcript in advance, so I did take a
Yeah.
peek, and you've done really quite well, Melanie. So you should be very proud of yourself. You had a hard course load
Thank
this
you.
past 11th grade, and
Yeah.
you perhaps had some maybe struggled a little bit first semester, but have improved over the course of second semester. So I think actually I don't think you struggled that much. I mean, in relation, but you probably
Yeah.
got more B's or 80s than you probably wanted to, and then you
Mhm.
improved over the course of your second semester. So great job.
Mhm.
And I think overall, without knowing what other students are taking at your school, I would presume that you're probably near the top of the rigor level. So you're probably near
Mhm.
the top of the hardest load that other students are taking at your school. So that's all a
Yeah.
good thing. Yeah.
I just want to quickly chime in and say I think it's so impressive the amount of APs you've taken. I think throughout the entire course of my high school, I took 5 in total,
Mhm.
which for the Bay Area, like as a as at the time, like a potential computer science major, all of my
Yeah.
friends were like, "Do you even want to go to college? Like, why are you not?"
Why
What?
didn't we do this
Yeah.
session for you, Shania, a couple years back? I mean, for
Yeah,
crying out loud.
if only I'd had Comet at the time I was applying. But yeah, and again, like I think it's great also like the classes you took and how they are kind of aligning with what you're really passionate about and what you potentially might want to do. So like I'd mentioned, I barely took I guess you could say barely, especially for like the Silicon Valley AP classes.
Mhm.
And I think that part of that was also because I spent a lot of my time, and sometimes I still do in college, invested in like my extracurricular activities, just because those were things like I'm passionate about, and I really felt like they were helping me develop like more authentic, like real world experience for what I wanted to pursue. So I'd love, Melanie, if you could share a little bit about some of the activities you've done and how you kind of maybe see those aligning with your
Mhm.
future or potential like interests or clubs in college.
Yeah, of course. So basically tracing back since freshman year, again, I was really locked in my house, of course, because of the pandemic. I was doing online school. So one thing that I really regret, that I'm really upset about, is that I didn't have the chance to discover as much as extracurriculars as I wanted to initially. So I started off my freshman year just doing cross country and track. And at the time, I wasn't aware of all the extracurriculars, of all the nonprofits, of all the organizations that I could be a part of. I never even knew those things existed. I just stuck with what I knew. Thankfully, because of my older brother, he told me, hey, why don't you do a sport? And he actually chose for me. I was like, okay, whatever, we'll try it out. And it was really difficult at first, constantly throwing up trying to run like 5 miles without having no experience whatsoever. But I've been in cross country and track varsity since my freshman year. And going to my sophomore year, as I was going to school, as I was seeing all of these other kids involved with other clubs or extracurriculars, I was like, wait, what are you guys doing? How do you guys get a part of this? What is this? And a friend actually recommended me to join Future Business Leaders of America. I'm not sure if you guys are aware with that. And I joined impulsively because I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do in college. I know I want to go to college. I've seen all these people recommending, hey, you're a sophomore, you're a freshman, join some clubs, join some organizations. So again, I impulsively signed up for it. And since then, it just opened my mind completely to all of these new experiences. Since then, I've been able to compete in competitions, attend conferences, and I recently just won an area officer position. So Texas is divided into, I believe, 7 areas. So I recently just won Area 5 secretary. So I'm in charge of the whole entire Houston area. And I've been really more involved with this organization more my junior year. I ran for state secretary recently in March. Unfortunately, I lost. It's totally okay. I'm just grateful that I had the experience to talk to so many people, and so many people shared to me their experiences, their past projects that they've done, which basically motivated me to start my own business. So I'm currently just in the route of trying to start my own business and basically just find a way how I can incorporate this business with community, if that makes any sense. And on top of that, I've been in student council, not so involved. I know student council isn't considered the most impressive extracurricular activity, but again, considering my school, this is where the part comes in where you go to school, what area you live in, plays a huge role on your extracurricular experience. Again, community, if your community is more involved, if your community offers all of these organizations or parents are involved with all these organizations, I feel like students typically have an easier time to feel more connected with their community. But the difference is, in my community, in my school specifically, there's basically no spirit. There's basically not as many people involved in extracurriculars. In my FBLA chapter specifically, my sophomore year, there was only 3 people, including myself. And the teachers and I really put an effort to increase our membership. Fortunately, we've increased by about 50 people. We've even got recognized by the state of highest membership increase. So I'm really happy about that. So yeah, my extracurricular experience hasn't always been set, hasn't always been definite. It's just me exploring. I wish I would have started sooner since freshman year, but since I've discovered my passion for business, entrepreneurship, finance, I've just been honestly trying to find ways in which I could be more a part of things. And leading on to that, I recently started doing this kind of research with a law firm. I'm also interested in law. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware with Denton's law firm. I believe it's the largest law firm in the United States internationally. And I've been curating this presentation to see how Denton's can be more involved with the community, with their clients. And I've been working with this group of girls, I believe it's the 4 of us, and I plan to go to New York this August actually to present my presentation to their headquarters in New York. And specifically, the organization is called Seeds of Fortune. They help minorities, first-gen students, and connect them with these types of opportunities. And I recently found out about this in this May, I believe. So yeah, it just kind of ties into my journey that nothing has been set. It's just me trying to do research on how I can be involved, if anything, virtually, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I'll
Yeah.
speak on behalf of Shania, but I've been
Mhm.
but we're all very impressed. So I think we're both
Yeah.
you've been very involved. You've taken every opportunity that's been given to you. And you've not only taken the opportunity, but you've found ways to step in and be a change maker within that ecosystem. And maybe an example of that is FBLA. There wasn't really much of an FBLA community at your school, but you worked with the teachers to really establish more of a program, a curriculum. And certainly, I'm sure you guys are sending teams to regionals and states and
Yeah.
beyond. And in so doing, are also an area officers. So congratulations. I
Thank
think,
you.
and the whole aspect of not being much involved in 9th grade is the same for everybody. So there's no need to feel and perhaps unsure or regrets about it. Everybody had the same issues, so no worries whatsoever. But honestly, it looks like you've done really quite well, and the overarching message of your resume is pretty clear. And if we can certainly talk about college major, which I presume is coming, but I don't have any lack of certainty about where you're going, what you want to study, and even the leadership capacity that you are demonstrating. And that, I think, perhaps it's all important, but that is a very important factor, because you have to imagine from an admissions officer's perspective,
Yeah.
what kind of student is going to be coming on campus. You don't want a student who's going to be hiding in their dorm room, who's going to be
Yeah.
just staring at their computer, staring at their phone. They want somebody who's interacting with the broader student community and participating and being a change maker. So you are
Yeah.
demonstrating that already. And to me, that's going to demonstrate well and come across well in your college apps.
Thank you. And just to add on to that, I left something out. I forgot to mention something. So this junior year again, this junior year has been very wide opening for me, because I've just been discovering more about myself, what I like, what I want to do. And I took the initiative to start our own club at my school, more woman-based, because again, the culture at my school is very divided, very separated, unfortunately. So I started a club with my friend, basically gathering girls among my school on how we can change some issues, how we can guide and assist other women within our community. And since adding on to that idea, volunteering is such an important aspect in college applications. I have a multitude of my friends, of freshmen, sophomores in my school, are always searching for volunteer opportunities and always come up and ask me, hey, do you know where I can volunteer? Do you know how I can get involved with volunteering? So I was like, okay, why don't we add volunteering into this? So we've been working closely with this, I'm not sure if it's a nonprofit, but this organization within Texas that helps human sex traffickers. And we've been donating some hygiene items for those survivors as well. So it doesn't really correspond to my major, but it was something more personal that I'm interested in, something that I wanted to help others as well to be more involved in, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Maybe before we go on to your student goals, which let's talk about your test scores, because I think perhaps that is a conversation point. And did you take the SAT or the ACT?
Yeah.
And if so, how did you do?
So I did not take the SAT, to be completely honest with you. I have no idea exactly. I mean, I've heard of the SAT before, but I haven't really educated myself much on it. I've heard that it was more beneficial for STEM-based majors, and I'm not interested in STEM. So I just came to the conclusion I'm just going to ignore the SAT. So I did actually just take the SAT. I took it this June, I believe. Yeah, this June. And I just received my scores back this July. Unfortunately, they weren't the most impressive scores. I got an 1100. I forgot specifically what was my score for the reading and math section, but I'm for sure pretty stressed about that. I mean, since then, I've purchased a book. I've been studying for at least an hour every single day. I plan on retaking it in August, and if that doesn't work out, I'm for sure retaking it in October. But yeah, one thing that if I could tell myself anything is start studying for the SAT earlier, since sophomore year, take it more times, because it would for sure save you a lot more stress and time. So that's basically my relationship with the SAT.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I know what I hear from other first-gen students is that, again, there's a lot of apprehension about their SAT scores, feeling like it's not matching up with other students. And my sense is that, like, we need to, students at this stage need to take advantage of the fact that most schools are going test optional. So you can submit the score if it's an asset to you, but you don't have to submit the score since schools are no longer requiring it. And we can get into this whole aspect of, like, if you're not submitting it, are schools assuming that you're scoring low? And I would surmise that colleges, and this is from having talked with quite a few admissions officers and kind of understanding the process, there's not a whole ton of time for that. There's not a whole ton of time for, like, oh, you didn't submit a score, you must have scored low. They're looking at the rest of your profile, trying to understand the context, trying to understand, like, did you take, I mean, I think they're going to be more concerned about whether you took the maximum or as many APs as you could with what your school was offering. I mean, those are the kind of things I think they're going to get more granular with. With that being said, does the test score still matter? The test score still matters, but in context. And so you are not going to be compared with other students at other schools whose parents made them study the SAT in ninth grade, right? So this is where, if you're coming from a high school where, generally speaking, the students have not been studying for it, have not been working on it, That perhaps is probably the most reassuring thing, is that like maybe in context of other students at your school, they're not submitting as high of a score as other students from other high schools. So don't overly worry. Do as well as you can. Practice this summer. I take practice tests. I know that you're studying from a particular book. There's lots of good books out there, but there is an aspect of repetition with practice tests that can't be replaced. So take as many practice tests as you can. I'll send you 10 practice tests right now once we're done with the call. And then you can go ahead. Yeah. I've never had a student get excited about me sending them practice tests, except for you, Melanie. So I'm excited to send them.
Yeah, please do, because honestly, ever since I've been personally studying for the SAT, my mind and my perspective has changed regarding the test so much. I mean, I was approaching this test completely the opposite way in which it's recommended for. And if I could go back in time, I would do everything the complete opposite. So ever since I've learned these skills, practicing is kind of fun to see how much I can improve, if that makes any sense. But yeah, just leading on to your idea that, just to reveal more about myself. So my district specifically, I feel like we're very divided, my school in particular. We all come from majority lower middle class or low class neighborhoods. And meanwhile, all the other high schools, they're really divided from like the opposite side of the town. The opposite side of the town is more upper class or upper middle class. And I have this like negative relationship within our districts, particularly the high schools. Everyone views my school specifically, undermines us. If someone mentions the name of my school, the other schools are like, oh, they suck at sports. Oh, they're dumb. Oh, they don't take anything seriously. And in reality, it's just like, well, we don't know, if that makes any sense. These resources, these parents, these faculty members, they have more experience, they have more resources, they have more connections at your school compared to our school, if that makes any sense. So I've always felt that since the beginning of my freshman year. And it's unfortunate because I feel like the students really take it personally. And in their mind, they're like, oh, everyone thinks so poorly about us. Oh, who cares? But no, it shouldn't be that way. I feel like we should be more united and help each other out more, if that makes any sense.
Actually, Melanie, I super appreciate you sharing that. And from what I hear you saying is that like you guys hear what other people are saying, or what you whether they're saying that or perhaps as a perception, but you're hearing it. It's and there's what I appreciate about what you're saying is that there's a sense of like we can't continue like this. Like we have to like figure out a way to find a different path and a new path and our own way to make it on our own and give it our best shot. So great, fantastic. And let's keep going. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. I loved hearing about that, Melanie, and I love how seeing your different extracurricular activities kind of start to align with what you want to pursue. So on that note, I know you mentioned something about law and also being interested in kind of like the business and finance side, and I know we've talked about this outside of this meeting too, like discuss that. So I would love to hear kind of a little bit more about your desired field of study, like what you maybe are thinking you want to major in, and what, you know, of course, even after the major, there's like so many different options to pursue different careers or higher study. I recently had like family friends come over, and they have a 10-year-old son, and he like was looking at me and he was like, oh, what do you plan to do like after college? And I'm like, I'm already halfway through college effectively. Like I finished 2 years of coursework, and I remember looking at him and I was like, oh, like I'm studying computer science. And he was like, yeah, like what do you want to do after that? And I'm like, like software engineering, like coding, like computer science. Like, so I think it's so funny that like now, like even after college, like there's so many things. And I've had like a 10-year-old ask me this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I went to my mom that day and I was like, did you know that there's different things to do with computer science, like outside of, you know? So I'd love to hear like not only what you want to major in, but maybe kind of what you're hoping to pursue after that, and how you envision your college like helping you get there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, and thank you for putting that more into perspective. So, again, revealing more about myself, my freshman year, I had no idea what I was doing. Again, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I know this was a crucial time. I was like, okay, I really need to start thinking about what I want to do because there's no time to waste. Unfortunately, in this current college system, in this current society, you have to start thinking about what you want to do in your future since like high school to secure a beneficial major and major that you would actually be interested in. So, based on personal experiences that I've lived through, and these experiences are too personal, I'll expose them in my college essays. But for now, based on experiences that I've gone through, that I've witnessed, I've always been interested in law. I've always had the urge to just speak for people, to represent people. I've witnessed a lot of unfairness, a lot of injustices, and I just want to, again, just speak for people. Specifically, I would like to study immigration law or corporate law. Corporate law ties in more to my interest to business, which I discovered in high school. I feel like I've always been interested in business, even when I was a little girl, because again, based on situations and experiences that I've lived through, but considering my young age, I never really realized it until I was older. So I plan on majoring in finance. I would love to double major in either economics or marketing. And my interest in marketing actually stemmed from Comet, from interning with you guys. And with that, I would like to do a pre-law path. I know for sure I want to go to law school right after college and either pursue immigration law or corporate law. I actually had a question about this. I applied to a scholarship and they asked me, what do you want to do in college? What type of activities do you want to do? And during college, I just really want to emphasize networking, creating relationships with professors, research, connecting with alumni. I would even like to work with startups or nonprofits. I would even like to start my own startup. I don't know what it would be exactly, maybe a marketing firm or something, perhaps my junior or senior year. I don't know how I will do that, but it's just a certain curiosity that I have. And why I'm interested in finance in particular is because my older sister actually motivated me and influenced me. My older sister went to community college right after high school, and initially she was going to be a teacher. But due to personal circumstances, she dropped out and then returned and got into finance. And she's been talking to me a lot about it. And there's so many opportunities with finance. And I just love that you get into this world, considering that I'm from a low income household and my relationship with money has always been, let's just say, not the strongest. I'm just so curious on how I can learn about this world of economics, finance, learn about investing, how I can help companies, how I can tie this information with immigration law and how to potentially help incoming immigrants reach their own goals towards life. So I know these two industries don't really have a lot of connections with each other. Maybe they do, I'm just not informed. But I would just like to ultimately combine this knowledge again to help other people during my law career, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And
Mhm.
I think maybe the couple of things that I hear, I think the first thing that I love hearing from you is that like you want to speak on behalf of people.
Yeah.
And there's a certain sense of like you recognize that there are injustices happening, whether it's small injustices or big injustices. You realize that people perhaps don't recognize the power of their own voice.
Yeah.
And in so doing, wanting to be their voice, and perhaps even as you're doing so, helping them discover their voice. And so I think that's fantastic. You've expressed a couple of interests in finance. You already are an officer in your FBLA. You have a much lauded internship with Comet. There's a lot of good things that you're involved in, but there is this interest in law and perhaps helping people who don't know how to navigate the system better to their advantage. So I
Mhm.
think it's all fantastic. And I don't think that you need to decide what you want to do today.
Mhm.
But I think your interests are clear. So I think it's in relation, your resume supports this. I think your coursework for the most part supports it. I do think maybe something from an admissions officer perspective is that if you're going to go into finance, they generally speaking want to see students do well in math. And so I think you're going into Calculus BC next year.
Yeah.
And you're taking the most difficult course load that you can take with math, and that's great. So continue to do well in that direction. I do feel like your options are open, because I think that you can certainly study, with law school, you can study anything.
That's
You
what I've
can
learned. Yeah.
study math, you can study art, you can study whatever, right? So you have some flexibility to really dig into your undergraduate experience and go in almost any direction that you want. I think the question of like whether you really want to find a school with a full undergraduate business program. Not every school has a full undergraduate business program. You're located in suburban Houston. Certainly, UT Austin has a very much well-regarded business school, undergraduate business school. So going there makes a lot of sense. But I do want to. This is a conversation that maybe we had off air. But also applying to a range of schools where you as a first-gen student might be somebody that they're looking for, where they may use institutional funding to try to encourage you to come. And so, it's one of those things where it's like if UT Austin, whether they supply your fully demonstrated need, I'm not 100% sure. But let's just say if UT gives you like half of all your expenses covered, and then maybe a school like Bates or would give you like 95% covered, would you consider it? And I would say you should probably consider it. Whether you decide to go, I think is a different decision. But applying to a broader range of schools and seeing what kind of offer they give you is only to your advantage. So
yeah, I completely agree. And during this college research, like I was discussing with you off air, I recently applied to this full ride scholarship that I got nominated for. And it's only with a certain amount of schools, and the majority of the schools are small liberal art colleges. For example, I believe Colby College is one of them. Carleton, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. But ever since discovering those colleges, I kind of went into a deep rabbit hole of small liberal art colleges. And I figured out that, from TikTok is such an amazing resource of hearing about other people's stories, specifically their college experience. A lot of first-gen students get full rides from small liberal arts colleges, and that's what surprises me the most, because the majority of them are predominantly Caucasian white, if that makes any sense. So I guess they do that as well to try to include some diversity. And leading on to that, doing my research with small liberal arts colleges, they aren't really involved with any business programs, but I'm more involved with business programs. I see that the majority do have economics, and I am interested in economics. Obviously, if a small liberal arts college were to give me more financial aid, I would just study economics. I mean, it's not worth the depth, but I was just curious to see your perspective on that.
Yeah, so it depends on the school. So there's going to be different schools where, most liberal arts colleges are not going to have a business program, but there's going to be a few that do. Like a Bucknell has a business program, and there's going to be a good handful of other schools that do. But you're right. By and large, for liberal arts colleges, the majority will not have business programs, and so maybe you might want to subset your liberal arts college pool into some schools that have some business programs, but something to consider, and this is where I know that your intent now is to go to law school, but there actually is a lot of business recruiting that is coming from liberal arts colleges. And so like a very common route for a lot of business majors is to go into business consulting, which I think is actually a really good first route for business student grads. Because you get a lot of exposure to a lot of different elements of business, and you get paid well. And in many respects, you can then decide after working for maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 years to after touching a lot of different parts, which direction do I really want to go into? And so the big consulting firms, which is the PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Bain, the McKinsey, and that's only getting started with a lot of these companies. They do recruit from a lot of liberal arts colleges because they're looking for sharp people. They're not even looking for business majors. they'll recruit a bio major, they'll recruit, a statistics major. Doesn't matter. They're just looking for intelligent, motivated students like yourself, and they most certainly recruit from liberal arts colleges in large droves. So I would absolutely consider it and not feel like then there's going to be student organizations where like students who are interested in business at liberal arts colleges are going to find other opportunities to learn about it. So I think at this stage, applying broadly schools that have business programs, but also liberal arts colleges that may want to fund you to come, just apply to all and then decide later. So I think that's probably fair.
That makes total sense. And what's really ironic is before this, I actually saw a TikTok about this one liberal arts student who did a major. She graduated. I think she was actually still in college. But anyways, she actually started working in business analytics. She got recruited. So I just think it's crazy hearing it from me. I was like, when I was watching the TikTok, I was like, wow, how is that even possible? But I have been seeing a lot of stories regarding that, and I definitely will definitely apply to all of these small liberal art colleges. And I guess that leads to my question. What was I going to ask? Sorry, my mind just went blank for a bit. Oh, my mind just went blank.
That's right. I was going to ask, do you do all your college research on TikTok?
Oh, no. I don't. It's just since I'm like currently in the college application process, naturally I feel like this is what I see on my For You page. I'm not on TikTok often, but typically I do search up UT experience, and then since then it's just my For You page is filled with all this college stuff.
Gotcha.
It's And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I recently have been networking with some finance people. I recently just completed this fellowship with this guy who graduated from Harvard. He's from Houston actually, and he's into investment banking. That's one profession that I'm interested in, investing. Any profession with that. I still have to do more research regarding that. But again, I've been networking. I actually just called someone from New York who works in Wall Street, and I plan on having another call with him discussing different career paths that are related with finance. So it's just more research that I have to do myself independently. But I know for sure business is what I'm interested in majoring in, and for sure law school, like I'm so set on it. I'm not interested in STEM and anything English or math related. Like that's for sure my passion. And again, it's just because of personal experiences that I've witnessed, and I'll explain more on my college essays. You can read about it. I'll send them to you, of course. But
so maybe something to kind of round out this conversation about selecting colleges is let's I would say definitely broaden your experience. I think this aspect of wanting to go potentially into investment banking or all the kind of derivative type industries that are around that, and there's going to be opportunities. So I would say what comes to mind automatically is certainly there are some pipeline universities NYU or Fordham, which is in New York City. Certainly Boston University and Northeastern have a lot of banking connections, and Northeastern has their own internship program that's they call it a co-op. It's a mandatory co-op that they require every student to complete before they graduate. And it helps students set up jobs for them once they graduate from college. And banking is there's a big, very corporate banking center in Boston where there's a lot of Northeastern students who then matriculate in that direction once they graduate. So there's a lot of options, but there are plenty of liberal arts grads who go in that direction as well. Plenty. So there's no shortage of it. So I think you're going to be in good shape. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And talking about Boston University, I've been now working again. I have a call with this junior who actually goes to Boston University tomorrow. I'm going to talk with him about research, internships that he has, basically advise careers within finance, just to do more independent research, just to widen up my perspective more on the potential career routes involved with finance. But one thing that attracts me the most with UT Austin that I recently discovered is that if you get accepted you apply, right? your fall semester, you apply as an undecided business major. And your first year in McCombs, you don't really have a major. You're deciding your major your sophomore year. So I could be interested in finance now, but maybe I decide to completely major in something completely different, like accounting or something like that.
I think there is going to be that kind of flexibility with many business programs. And so once you're in the business school, then you can move around as you discover where your strength is. And so that is a good aspect of UT, and is also available to other schools as well.
I will for sure apply, do my research more on the small liberal arts colleges, because like I was saying earlier, I applied to that specific scholarship, and that's what really introduced me to the existence of all these small liberal arts colleges. I've heard of them before, but I never really knew what they were. I was like, what's really the difference? But yeah, as I've been doing more independent research on these particular small liberal arts colleges, and based on your advice and information that you give me, they're for sure really valid options, and I will probably apply to like 10 of them for sure.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it was definitely so interesting to hear you guys discuss all of the process of like selecting colleges. And I love, Melanie, how you've been talking about the different people you're trying to network and connect with. And I think that's so helpful. Like even for me when I was applying, just kind of getting like, people's experiences and understanding how they found like the right fit college for them, and how people were working even post college. I think it's so insightful. Shifting on to kind of another aspect now that we've kind of approached colleges, I wanted to open the space up a little bit for just discussing like questions or concerns you might specifically have with regard to the actual application itself. I know there's a lot of different parts, including like the activities list, and depending on if you're applying for in-state, out-of-state, there can be like different supplemental questions, and getting like letters of rec. So it's obviously a very like time-consuming, heavy process of applying to college. So I'd love to hear any questions that you have for Elton or me.
Yeah, of course. So one thing that I do admit that I'm really proud of myself for is I didn't know this. I didn't know that this is just me being nervous and anxious about this whole entire experience. I didn't know that certain colleges only request a specific number of recommendation letters. I requested 5 of my teachers for recommendation letters, and they all said yes. And I was planning on even asking even more people for recommendation letters this upcoming fall, some people from FBLA that I'll be working with. And for example, I've been looking at different colleges, and some of them even only require 2. So that's just really eye-opening for me, really insane, because I was like, wait, so can I submit 5 or maybe even more than that? Or what is y'all's opinion? Me saying y'all, I'm from Texas, I apologize.
No
Your
need to
opinion,
apologize. That's the best part.
what is your opinion on recommendation letters? What type of content should I secure from recommendation letters?
Yeah,
Since I requested so much.
That's a great question. With regards to rec letters, I think most schools are only requiring 2 teachers, and you're gonna want 2 ideally core subject teachers. So when I say core subjects, I normally mean it's math, science, English, social science, and foreign language, and art as well if you're an art student. So you're gonna want it to come from your core subjects, and ideally not your electives. And then you want it to come from teachers who know you best. And in 99% of cases, that's coming from your junior year. And so certainly asking, one of your most recent teachers, and it could be in, you did AP Lang and AP US History, wherever that might be, that would be fine. I think depending on your major, you might want to do a combination of like STEM and humanities. But since you're likely going into humanities, then I think it's okay. So whether you want to do pre-law or if it's business, I think there's some flexibility. If you're doing engineering, I think it'd be nice to include a math or science rec letter. So that would be ideal. And also maybe the last thing with regards to like the number of recommendations, there's going to be some schools who will allow you to submit extra recommendations, but you don't want to like max it out. Like it's one of those things where if you can imagine on the admission reviewer's side, if they see 5 rec letters that are saying exactly the same thing, it's like and they're reading thousands of applications, you might annoy them. right? So you
Oh,
want to
okay.
send them what they require. But if they allow you to send a third, but they don't require a third, is there a third rec letter that would tell a different story about you?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
if there's like, say, an internship supervisor, if there's like this law firm that you're interning at that you're doing some kind of national marketing,
mhm,
assessment study for, that person in a work environment would likely tell a slightly different story of you than a
mhm,
teacher in a classroom environment. But otherwise,
mhm,
I wouldn't get like 3 more teachers who would tell you, and like your 10th grade geometry teacher, your 9th grade algebra
mhm.
1 teacher. I wouldn't go in that direction. So
Yeah.
so only if they would tell a slightly different story about you.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm glad that I actually followed that advice. So I asked my AP Lang teacher and both of my FBLA advisors, they are also business teachers. And I also asked my AP World teacher from last year. And that's just because I had such a great experience in his class and I had such a great relationship with him. And I also asked my cross country coach, but now after hearing your explanation, I yeah, I guess I'll just exclude the recommendation letter from my cross country coach and from my past AP World teacher, and maybe only limit it to my AP Lang teacher and one of my FBLA advisors who knows me the best. And I actually am waiting for a response. I'm trying to see if I can maybe shadow at the law firm in which I'm interning for. They have multiple locations around the world, but they have one in Houston about 25 minutes away from me. So I hope I get a response soon. And I hope I'm able to build a great relationship with them so that I can ask a recommendation letter from them instead. So that really just explains my curiosity on that. And I now realize how unnecessary it was because I had brought all 5 of my teachers little goodie bags asking them for the favor. So it was all unnecessary for 2, but it's okay. They're great. It's fine.
That's still a good thing. The goodie bags are still good things. So no
Yeah.
worries. But let me maybe one micro thing about this is that your 2 required teacher recs are gonna be your Lang teacher, and if it's your AP World teacher, it's gonna be that teacher. The FBLA is what they call an optional additional. So it'll be
Mhm.
the third. It won't it
Okay.
it shouldn't be the core 2, because the
Mhm.
core 2 should be actually teachers. And on top of the
Mhm.
fact that, and this goes into kind of like a process part, but like, does your school use Naviance?
No, I believe we do not. I believe we use this. I don't even know what. Oh, okay. It's called School Links. And
Yep.
over there, are you aware with that? School Links?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, School Links is a larger platform, and then in many cases, your school may contract like a Naviance or a Score or some other kind of platform to manage all the college admissions process. And so,
Mhm.
or they may not, So if they do, then only your teachers will be able to, like, only your actual teachers who are your teachers. So your FBLA advisor is not your teacher technically, is
Oh,
your
yeah.
FBLA advisor. So
Yeah.
if your school uses Naviance or Score, then only your
Mhm.
teachers will be able to
Mhm.
submit a rec through that platform through into the Common App.
Mhm.
So just an FYI. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
total sense. I was totally unaware with that. I honestly thought that recommendation letters was, oh, it's from whatever. I'll just ask the people who I know me the best. And I guess another question that I have the most, I guess everyone would consider this the most complex aspect of the college application is the essay. So
Mhm.
I'm really confused on these essays. I know I want to apply to multiple schools within Texas. Considering that I'm top 10% of my class, I'm automatically accepted to the majority. I'm planning on using Apply to Texas, but at the same time, Common App because I want to apply to all these small liberal arts colleges and maybe some bigger colleges outside of Texas. So I'm not sure if you're aware or familiar with applywithtexas.com.
Mhm. Very. Yeah,
So
very.
I haven't really looked into it, but do you recommend applying to all of the colleges, even the colleges within Texas, through just the Common App or use both websites?
It would be easier for you if you use the Common App, and there's no advantage to you using the UT Texas platform. So with I think maybe going back, the essays, you want to paint as much context into your story so that the reviewer understands exactly where you came from. And you don't need to do it for every essay. You don't need to kind of like be very kind of, in your face about it. But
Yeah.
there should be a story, and it could be your personal statement, or it could be in a supplement essays where you really give the admission reviewer an understanding of whatever hardships or whatever challenges, whatever struggles that you've had. And then in light of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, Harvard actually recently sort of identified what they would consider as a loophole in the Supreme Court ruling by saying that colleges, if students bring up race in the context of their college application submission, then schools should be able to consider whatever the student offers in the admission package. So which Harvard is interpreting as, if you bring in race into your essays, then we will consider it. And so the reality is that schools are, even in light of the Supreme Court ruling, they want to diversify their student body as much as possible. And it's their intent of wanting to also ethnically diversify. So if there is a natural way for you to communicate your background, where you came from, perhaps how your heritage has contributed to where you are now, then most certainly include that in there. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was actually going to ask you about that, because I believe it was last week in which that ruling came out and it was trending. I was very curious because I've been brainstorming ideas on my college essays, and I'm pretty sure the majority of first-gen minority students agree with this experience as well. Your ethnicity, your race is basically your identity. Like, how could you exclude that from your college application essays when it influences so much the things that you've been through and the things that you've experienced? So it's just so crazy to me, but I for sure plan on taking that as much as my advantage. Do you recommend including diversifying the essays, including anything else other than race, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I would say this, like take stock of your story, really understand like how everything plays a part of it, not just your ethnic background, and then make sure that there's a clear presentation or representation about like how your, and I think culture is broader than just ethnic background. So I think your culture is also your community from where you came from, your family, but that certainly includes your racial background. So like understanding how the culture of where you came from is contributing to how you got here. And then that could be, it certainly could be a natural kind of pathway into your personal statement, or it could be in the additional comments in your comment app, wherever it might be. So I'm less saying, oh, make sure you include that, because maybe that, whatever that is not sort of a significant part of your story. Think more about what's significant for you first, and then find ways to highlight that clearly in your essay. So
yeah, that makes completely sense. And moving on from the essays, just to ask really quick. So one part of the common application that I'm so stuck on is the rewards section. That's one thing that I also regret not have participating in much competitions. I wish I would have seeked more ways on how to secure rewards or certifications. I know I'm a part of FBLA, but I haven't really been as much active on it since my sophomore and junior year. And when I was active, it was me running for officer positions, not much competing, because I just didn't have much time. So I have won certifications within FBLA, for example, as recognition, but is there anything that I could do right now to gain some rewards or something like that?
I mean, not really, but like but if you have like a school honor roll, anything like that can be included in there. And then I would say, like, don't overly stress about that. I feel like, if you have it, you have it. And understand this, again, it's in context of your school. So if, generally speaking, it's not sort of an overly, populated category for students from your school, then I wouldn't over stress about it. So don't worry too much. Don't make up stuff, and don't go chase an Oscar.
Yeah, of course not. I
Yeah.
actually I'm going to A&M next week to participate in this business leadership program that I got invited to and actually got into it. And based on my comprehension, I believe there's presentations at the end and we get some rewards. Would I include something like that in there?
You could, absolutely. So
Okay, great.
let me maybe mention one more thing,
Yeah.
and we could certainly do a session too. Let's
Mhm.
see. But maybe the last thing is that there's going to be a lot of, and this is going to include UT, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of schools that have programs specifically for first gen students, and it includes, like in the UC system, they have the Educational Opportunities Program. There's a first gen initiative at the University of Iowa. USC has their first gen college student program. So there are a lot of universities that create programs specifically, which includes some scholarships, but which also includes mentorship and networking, which you've mentioned quite a few times, and
Yeah.
I think you'd be great at it. But provides access for you to develop relationships with professors, administrators in the university. So, with all that being said, schools are looking for you. And in so
Mhm.
doing, wanting to, this is not just, this certainly can be a diversity play, but on top of the fact that, like, the redemptive part of this is that universities do want to provide first gen students an opportunity to really change the trajectory. And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that the narrative at your school among your classmates has really been, I'm just going to go to community college. I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing. I'm not going to think bigger for yourself. And I'm encouraged by your big vision for yourself and schools. There are plenty of schools that want to enable that and empower you. And I'm excited for you, fortunate that we get to
Thank you.
meet and stay connected. And Shania, we should find a way, perhaps maybe we can do an episode 2, but
Yes, for
let's talk
sure.
about it.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melanie, for joining. I think definitely a little follow-up episode would be great, and we can then share some helpful resources as well that first gen students might find helpful. And just as a very brief recap, I think, like Elton mentioned, and so did Melanie, if you're applying for college, especially as first gen, it's very important to consider like the different financial aspects and kind of not shy away from the different opportunities or alternatives you might have. And, considering community is entirely valid, as is wanting to go for a 4-year and looking into those options as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing. So that concludes this episode of our Comet podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening and gained valuable insights from our discussion. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on this week's episode and share it with your friends and family. If there's specific topics you would like to hear about or people that you want to see featured on our podcast, feel free to let us know in the comment section below, or you can also go to www.applywithcomet.com/podcast. Our contact information will be in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on our Comet podcast.